Thank you, Rebecca. I think if anybody needs to learn about how to do a presentation, we've just had an example of that. I was entertained, I was informed, I was given information, and I now have a bibliography, and I know we're going to get some more information. So thank you very much for everything you've shown us about surfing. I wasn't expecting, I'm not a surfer, but I'm now interested, so thank you for that.
Hey, are you doing surfing now? Are you snowboarding?
Oh, we're carrying on, sorry.
Are you doing surfing now?
I will try surfing. Next time I'm seeing my son in North Tyneside, I will ask him to take me. Sorry, I saw it on your map. Thank you very much. Right. Well done for making it to the end, everybody. Here we are. This is the hardcore. We've got 20 minutes and maybe a few questions, but I know Janine and Ali have said, right, we've got to go at 4 o'clock. If you do have to go, if you have a train, please don't worry, get up, move out, that's fine. There'll be all the information following on. Yes, Sheffield. There we go, we're back to
my last show.
Here we go, user error again. There we go, we're here. Right, so, creation of a walking act to celebrate Sheffield's unique football heritage. I shouldn't be here. I really shouldn't. I am not the right person to be doing this. I don't come from Sheffield. I don't particularly like football. I suppose the reason that and that was it, I was sold a dummy by John Wilson from Sheffield University, to use a sporting metaphor, who said, Nick, we need to go to the Sporting Heritage Conference. You know, you went last year, you had a nice time, didn't you, in Liverpool? We need to go and talk about an app. So I said, fine, okay, you do the presentation, everything. He said, fine, that's it. And then a few weeks ago, who knew lecturers actually have to sometimes go up and stand up in front of students? And that's what he's had to do. So we said, Nick, you're doing it. Fine, okay, I don't mind as long as I can brand it Library Sheffield, because that's who I represent. And the reason I am here is because a couple of years ago I was actually infected. Unfortunately, I met a guy in a library in Sheffield, Chapel Town, and he transferred something to me which I'm still struggling to get rid of. Don't feel sorry for me, it's actually something I'm quite enjoying at the moment. It's the meme, and the meme is Sheffield, the home of football, because Sheffield is the home of football. The person that I met was Martin Westby, who's a historian. I do the rounds of my libraries, and every so often I drop in on events and find out what's going on in my libraries, and he was there talking to a rapt audience of about 8 people about his book, Speed, Science, Bottom, something about the history of the 90 teams in Sheffield and around its environments in 1857 to 1889. And I sat there and I thought, well, I know there's something about Sheffield, yeah, as the oldest football club in the world, sort of played. I don't know what that's about. But at the end of it, I thought, why the hell, and I'll show you, aren't Sheffield doing more about its heritage, about football? Why not? And I'll show you some of the reasons why not. And I thought, why isn't the council doing something? And I thought, I am the blooming council. Get on and do something. Right. So I actually had some money, which was unfortunate, and I think, was it Victoria yesterday was talking about sometimes you need to think a bit laterally and find somebody who's got a bit of resource and they can join in with you and do something different. Well, I was that other person. I had some resource to create a walking app. I had Libraries Connected is a body of libraries authorities who put money into a pot and every so often get money out to do something innovative. So, we were going to do a walking tour, Blitz Holds of Sheffield. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, when I talked to Martin, because we hadn't got enough money to do that and develop the app, we haven't got enough time to spend with our archivists finding the stories, so we needed somebody to help do us that. And so we asked Martin whether he wouldn't mind giving us over his content of his book to create the walking app. And here we have a picture of a bunch of Sheffield reprobates. We think it is the oldest photo of a football team, and it's Sheffield FC. And it was very convenient that they actually managed to sit right in front of a cutout that happened to be exactly the shape of Sheffield's skyline in 2013. Anyway, so he said, yeah, no problem. I know a guy called John Wilson who developed this. He's been permanently infected by Sheffield, the home of football meme, and he developed this a number of years ago with all the Sheffield firsts. I won't go through them all, can see them on things. There are just so many firsts that happened around association football, the creation of association football. The Sheffield rules were written in 1858. You can see so many things there. The oldest football trophy, I'm going to read them if I... Anyway, there are so many firsts. And I liken this to... Do you remember going to a strange town years ago, and before you had maps and tourist information, you had a board with little lights on that showed you where the police station was and the library and yeah. Well, I think Sheffield, if there was a map of the history of association football and you pressed origins, Sheffield would be a beacon of light that would be shining out. Not necessarily because it was the oldest, because there are older clubs, Edinburgh, not because it was the first rules, because I think Cambridge had the first rules that looked a bit more like football, but because of this amalgamation of things which go right up to the present day. The oldest schools inter-schools trophy, the Clegg Shield, is still played for now, and 4 players in the last England World Cup team actually played in that competition a few years before. So the history is now. And I was talking a bit about to Stuart yesterday with the youth tour of Wales about creating heritage now, using what we have in the past to actually create future heritage. So that is something that we have, and we have a continuity. It wasn't something that just stopped, it's something that's carried on. So we have all those firsts, and I said, well, I know nothing, I'm not a historian, I know nothing about the origins, so I need a map, I need a timeline. So they created me one. So this is the timeline of ancient football, going through rugby, through Eden Harrow, Cambridge, coming to Sheffield. So this is Sheffield. This looks like a sombrero galaxy. I'm not sure really, but anyway, this is the start of Sheffield FC, 1857. Hallam FC, the second oldest club in the world still playing, 1860. And we have in Sheffield the oldest football ground in the world, Sandygate. And I took some Spanish journalists up there the other year. They came to do the walking tour for Panenka magazine. They'd heard about it and they wanted a free jolly to go and see the Steel City Derby, so I got them tickets. And then they got up to Sandygate and they were absolutely knocked out by... It's a lovely club, it's fantastic. They're playing the youth engagement. Anyway, and they're still going, and they're still playing on the same ground. We've got this heritage in Sheffield and we don't make as much of it as we should. Sheffield rules I mentioned, bit of an archive oops here. We have those in our collection from 1960 up until a few years ago. Somebody decided to sell them. We couldn't persuade them not to. So they're no longer in possession of the archives. Luckily we took some pictures before they went. Don't know whether we should have done, don't know whether that's archived or... Anyway, they formed the formation of a celebration that we had last year, which I'll show you a short video about. So how did we create this app when we didn't have enough money, we didn't have enough archive time, we'd had somebody who got some interest in the topic. We found a local company called Llama Digital in Sheffield. They do walking tours of museums. Situate is their app. I should have put a link up, but I'll send that on later. They were quite interested in expanding into walking tours. We got John from the university, and he was helping with getting the voiceover, so we wanted to do an audio tour. And we also produced we identified some original materials, some photographs of buildings, and we found the 1855 map, which Martin was crucial, wanted to do, because football, you need a fairly flat area. Sheffield is not flat in the majority, so most of the grounds that football was first played on, Sheffield Wednesday played on 5 different grounds, were around the valley of the Sheaf River, which is now culverted mainly. So it's in one area, so it lent itself to a walking tour. So, but Martin wanted us to be able to flip between the current Google map and the ancient, 1855 map, which showed that actually most of those places were in the country. Bramall Lane, it was a lane. It was outside of the town, so therefore understanding the context of why football was played in those places. And we found some historic documents, which I'll mention briefly when we get to it. So this is what it looks like. That's the first ever floodlit game which was ever played anywhere in the world at Bramall Lane. 1870, as I said, I'm not a historian, but it's around then. The generators that were actually used to produce the electricity to produce the light, there's one in Malta's museum for some strange reason. Who knew? Anyway. So that's what it looks like. You can download it onto your iPhone or Android. It's free. So if you search for Sheffield the Home of Football, please have a look at that. So far we've had 2,000 downloads. Not many, but I did get asked some questions by Coventry, who were doing a medieval tour, and they'd done something for a heritage lottery bid, and they'd found out that somebody had actually spent 20 grand on an app, a walking app, and they'd had 20 downloads, and they were quite happy with that. This was a few years ago, so I think 2,000, and we spent about 7 grand on this, so not massive amounts of money. So that's what it looks like. I'd love to be able to demonstrate it, but you can see we found the loop going in and out of the city centre. The advantages of it being editable, I suppose, is that we found that people wanted to do a shortened route around the city centre. So we actually, on the fly, basically made some mods, and people can download it. And if you download the app, you'll see you want to update. So we have 10 pins and we have 10 bits of information. This one is the Adelphi Hotel. I think we've already had that mentioned today, maybe. But it was the, it's on the site of the Crucible Theatre now in Sheffield. You've all heard of that for snooker. And it was the place where the rules were written down in 1858. Well, there is a plaque to that effect in the Crucible. If you can find it, it took our historian half an hour to find it. It is, as you go in round the side, up there's a lift, and oh yeah, there's a plaque and it says something about football. No, this is Sheffield. You know, we do not celebrate this, which is unique in the world. This is a, sorry, infection's taking over, I'm getting fever. Right. Okay, so we decided to launch it. What's the point of having all this if you don't tell people about it? So we did a launch day one Sunday afternoon. We started off at Healy Parish Church, where the tomb of Nathaniel Creswick, who was the co-founder of Sheffield FC, was buried. There was no plaque on that tomb until we started this tour. The people in the church didn't know that outside was the place where the co-founder of the oldest club was still playing and was buried. We now have a plaque on it. So we're making a sense of place and identity which helps people recognise that they come from a place where football was created. So we have 71 people and a dog. Isn't he adorable? I didn't actually know what his name was, but he looks like he should be Snowy. So there we are, health and safety, try and do anything with the council, walking 71 people around the city centre. Yeah, there we go. But fabulous, we asked people to come in their football colours. Nobody fell out except the historians. They're great, aren't they? What we did was split them into 2 teams, obviously, separated by 5 minutes, set them off around the route. We had historians at the various places, Olive Grove, which is now a council depot, one of the famous grounds for Sheffield Wednesday, and then, yeah, these 2 historians are arguing about some technicality of where the ground was. Nobody really knew, but anyway. So after we separated those, everybody's okay. Half time in the town hall with oranges, of course. This is Councillor Anne Murphy, who's now the chair of Sheffield, the Home of Football, and is a great advocate for sport, and at the time allowed us entry into the town hall to celebrate and have some refreshments. And then we had this guy turn up. Now, this is the great-grandnephew of Nathaniel Creswick, Geoffrey Norton. And he rocked up with a plastic bag on the bus, and in that plastic bag was the journal of his great-great-uncle from 1857 that says, "I have established a football club to which most young Sheffield come and kick." That's the origin, that's the original document, and he's carrying it around in a plastic bag on number 52 coming to Sheffield on a Sunday afternoon. Needless to say, the chairman of Sheffield FC now escorts him and collects him from his home and takes him to anywhere. I can tell you this, but I think the chairman thinks he's going to get that book at the end. Geoffrey's told me I'm going to get it. So, and there we were at the end. And of course, I'm Sheffield Libraries. I need to have a libraries link. And the last stop on the tour was Highfield, which is on the site of one of Sheffield Wednesday's first pitches. So there we are, celebrating the fact that we had walked 4.7 miles, 71 of us. I think we lost a few on the way, but anyway. 11,000 steps, and we had some young people there. who never complained once and never got on their phones once, even though this was a walking app. Yeah. Yeah. So when you want them to go on the... Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to skip, because this is slightly out of sequence. So this was the end of it. I've obviously got staff who are massive football fans, and they put on a great spread, and we had a Q&A with all the historians. We separated the rival historians, and we had a great chat. And they wouldn't go home. They wouldn't go home. So, where's that led to? Well, I thought that was it. I thought that's all I needed to do. Done it, captured it, published it, back to the libraries, that was it. Martin said, do you know that this year, this was last year, is the 160th anniversary of the writing of the rules? No, I didn't know that, Martin. Fine, okay. What does that mean? Oh, I think we should have a week-long celebration in your library. Okay, my central library. Yes, we'll take over the whole thing. We'll get all the silverware and all the clubs will come and they'll be fantastic. Okay, do you know how much that's going to cost? No idea. How much silverware do you think there is? About 10 million quid worth? What the insurance on that is? About 15 grand? No, can't do that. We're going to have one day. We're going to tell them they can come, they can bring the silverware, they can stand with it, they can take it home. I take no responsibility for it. So, Sheffield the Home of Football was sort of created at that point, and I was asked to put on this event. And it's, well, I'm going to show you what it's like. Hopefully, this is what happened.
If Sheffield was able to get that sort of official recognition of its place in football in history. I think it's a sort of rightful place in a sport that is globally loved and globally appreciated.
All these collections together shows what the depth of the heritage is here in Sheffield. It is a heritage for the whole of world football.
The game that we know and we play and that's played all over the world now, we're actually forged in Sheffield. Just down the road at the Adelphi Hotel, just round the corner.
It's very exciting. We've got Sheffield FC, we've got Hallam FC, we've got Sheffield FC, we've got Sheffield United. It's massive, it just needs more recognition.
I'm so proud of Sheffield for a start. The heritage to all these clubs, the oldest ground, the oldest professional ground, first London match, you name it, was virtually the first came in Sheffield.
Why I wanted to engage with Sheffield the Home of Football as an initiative, I felt like it was part of my responsibility to actually open up the archives and open up the history of Sheffield so that people old and young can access that information and feel a sense of pride about this city that forged the beautiful game.
As well as the steel city, it'd be nice to know the football capital as well, that'd be quite nice.
This tells you all the things that started in Sheffield. Floodlights, throw-ins, corner kicks.
The first whistle, football match.
Substitutes, 11 aside,
First shin guards.
changing ends, 90 minutes.
First we had one punch.
These are all the things that were written in the original rules and sort of went on from there to the games it is today.
An app that takes you on a walking trail around all the historically important sites to do with the birth of football. So it's a really fascinating walk through time.
When I was about 12 years old, I walked across Hillsford Park. In that park, there was a notice board that said Sheffield FC, the oldest football club in the world. So ever since that time, I've really been interested even more in the football's heritage. And that's why we're trying to make the world learn about Sheffield to this day.
It's about sharing things for me with my brothers, with my dad, and being able to look back later on, not only at the football, but what we were doing at the time.
The FA Cup semi-final, and Court refused to share his being Super Christy Waddle did the business as well.
Jimmy Hagan's testimonial against an international 11 including Stan Matthews, Tom Finney, I just loved the atmosphere and everything about the football.
The Sheffield Wednesday Cup final, even though we lost, it was absolutely brilliant.
United versus Cardiff. I think United were 3-0 up in 15 minutes. They ended up winning 5-1. Curry and Badger and Woodward were absolutely magical.
We used to come home after a match then and watch Oblong Cassidy on little black and white telly and have bacon, egg and beans, so that's a terrific memory.
The last game with my dad before he died, and sort of he stood on the copper with the 4th Division Championship and seeing tears sort of stream down my dad's face. And I remember saying to him, you know, you're crying because we've won, and Dad said, no, I'm just crying because I never got to see us play Division 4.
I'm now hoping we can take this forward in a very measured way, but one that will not only affect this city, this country, but internationally as well.
And I think this is a great opportunity for the people of Sheffield and to really seize the opportunity to push for the fact that this is the birthplace of the association game.
It would be lovely to have Sheffield recognise more the truth that this is where it started.
The passion of the people in Sheffield for football is very important.
Welcome to Sheffield, home of football. That's what it is.
So what? I decided that I wasn't going to wait for, and we do have a 153-page strategy document which is just about to be published, but I decided that I wanted to do something about it, create a walking app. I had the resources, I had the contacts, we formed the partnerships, and we did something, and I thought that was it. And that was the first step, and I think the lessons I've learned from Richard's presentation about the football memories is that you're on a journey and you don't know quite where you're going to go, and I feel almost scared but inspired that actually these are the first couple of steps. So these are the things that we learned from it. These are the things that we want to, build on. The one thing I wanted to talk about, before I started that film, was that was actually not commissioned by us. We couldn't afford to commission a film. That was from Heritage Lottery funded Sporting Memories film, which was filmed by the Reporters Academy, which is a not-for-profit organisation based in Manchester, which I think you should be aware of, which takes young sporting journalists, it takes people who consume sporting knowledge and information on the YouTube and things, but actually say, where does that come from? They go and they take young people to the Olympics, to lots of places around the world, and they train them up in production, film, editing, and telling a story. And they gave us that for free because they were following our Sporting Memories team, which were based in one of my libraries. So all those guys that you saw, and they were all guys because it was aimed at gentlemen who were probably a bit isolated in their communities, in the blue and the red t-shirts. We obviously had to have one of each colour in Sheffield, and they were fantastic on the day. They just did an amazing job of marshalling a jury. But the Reporters Academy, I give them tribute, and I'll probably make sure that we get a link to them because they are fabulous and it's not for profit. So, but young people are the key. If you remember what was in the book, the journal, Nathaniel President, I established a football club at which all young Sheffield come and kick. So it's about youth, it's about engagement. So we want to turn that app into a bid for a children's book. Martin's book, he's quite honest, it's for the geeks, it's for the older guys. So therefore we want a young person. We've now got Dan Walker as the official ambassador, you saw that, and he's doing the forward to the strategy. Actually took us to China. I had the privilege of going with the British Library to part of a tour of, well, it wasn't a tour, it was an event for libraries from across China came and talked to leaders from the UK. I was asked to go and talk about innovations that we've done. One of the things I talked about was Sheffield United football. So that was at the Chengdu conference earlier this year. They were fascinated. They can't get access to it because of the great internet wall of China, but we're going to think about that. So, this is the strategy that's coming out now. Actually, there's a meeting today with Richard Caborn and Dave Richards, I think, who was chair of the FA a few years ago. And we've got an organisation who's going to take this forward. So, they're the things, but one of the big things I want to do, and this is the documents I was talking about, we identified there were some documents in a library in Penistone, which is outside my area, in Barnsley, in the Dransfield cabinet, which were letters, because it wasn't just Sheffield, it was the whole of the South Yorkshire area where there were these clubs. There were letters between them organising games, and they were sort of like, oh, we'll have a Boxing Day games and then we'll go hunting the dogs afterwards. They were fantastic, these letters, social history. And we identified those, and of course, you know, nobody knew they were there. Well, they didn't know they were there, they didn't know the context. We found out what the context was. Some of them have gone missing since we did this event. We are watching as our heritage leaks away and we don't do something. Fortunately, we know Barnsley Archives very well. They put in a bid for the National Manuscript Trust. They've got £5,000. They've taken those documents and they're going to preserve them, scan them. Well, we're going to conserve them, but they're going to scan them and put them in on the thing. So we've actually saved something. So I'm grateful that actually that event has actually created or saved some very valuable documents. But there are others out there. And we know that we are at this point where we need to start to put forward a bid that will actually protect them. So, there's nothing in Sheffield that says this is the home of football. There's no place, there's no library. Sorry, there's no visitor centre. I'd love one in the library. You know, I saw what Kenny has done up in Duns. That's just amazing. We'd love to do something like that, and obviously Wrexham as well. But we don't have any art in the city. It's one of the Sheffield things. We don't make a big song and dance about it. They leave that to Manchester. Anybody seen Early Man? The film Early Man? Yeah, the cartoon, Aardman animation. There's a meteorite lands, the creation of football. Yeah, it says underneath it somewhere near Manchester. Right, so we've got a lot to do. That's it, and I'm hoping that actually you've got some answers to help me with my affliction, and I'll be cured. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Thank you very much.